and the King's meeting yesterday should be viewed as part of the contribution to the debate which is going on in South Africa. Why should everybody else speak and the King can't speak? And actually, we were in the hearings. More stronger things were said than what the King said.
Yeah.
We have heard the Boers declaring civil war, that anyone who touches our land, there will be blood on the floor. They didn't say it in a diplomatic way, they said it straight, in a very provocative manner. But we don't get angry and all that because it's their contribution. It's an emotive issue. People say all manner of things they want to say. So we don't see the King's contribution as something different from what we've been listening to. And actually we see the King's meeting as the most progressive meeting because they are preparing to receive the public hearings of Parliament which are going to KZN. Unlike others who were shocked when we arrived, that they didn't know there was such a process. So the King says they are aware, this is their contribution. Part of what people are suggesting is that, KZN must be an independent state. It's a contribution. It will happen if it happens through democratic means. Anything is possible in a democracy. There are Boers who are calling for a separate Boer republic, since we can't find each other on the land. They are not elevated. They are not projected as people who are actually provoking war in South Africa. All of these contributions will not intimidate us. We view them as a robust debate in a democratic South Africa. And nowhere in the contributions of the EFF did we call for termination of traditional leadership, particularly in relation to the land. We have said to the traditional leaders, including the Zulu King, let's make contribution to the process. And we're happy our traditional leaders are making contribution. Even in the public hearings, they come, they make contribution. People come, raise their concerns on how traditional leaders handle the issue of the land in their own localities. Those are the things that when you expropriate land without compensation and make the state a custodian of such land, when you go into making legislation, you now accommodate all of these concerns which were raised. How do we deal with exclusion of women? How do we deal with nepotism? How do we protect food security? Because this thing of the land is very simple, comrades. You just go into a village and look at how many families are there sharing 5 to 10 hectares called their settlement. 10 hectares. And then you go next to them, you find one Afrikaner family owning 1,000 to 2,000 hectares alone. And the village is constituted by more than 2,000 families. They are sharing 10 hectares. One family of an Afrikaner owns 2,000 hectares. And they only use 200 hectares of the 2,000 hectares they are owning. And then don't touch it. Don't do anything about it. Let these villagers continue to share the 10,000 hectares when one person owns 2,000 hectares. So it can be an acceptable practice. But what I find actually more problematic is that when we speak about racism in this country, people say all manner of things. But I'm still to see a white person who supports expropriation of land without compensation. I just need one. So this thing that actually the division is a class division in South Africa is not true. Because even the poorest white person who doesn't have a land, who has got nothing, you pick up that person at the robots and say, what is your view about land expropriation? That no, leave the land alone. The poorest white person. So in South Africa, we are still to deal with class divisions. At the core of our divisions is racism. That even the white hobo can't imagine black people owning a land, and it will collapse the economy. Because the way you are so dirty, everything you touch, you dirty it. That's what they say about us, that will collapse the economy. That everyone else will go. That was Zimbabwe. But that which we are doing now, I'm still to see a person who's going to show us that this was done in Zimbabwe, that we're doing here. Yeah. It has never been done in Zimbabwe. The consultations brought involvement of everybody and allowing those who own the land to come to our meetings and insult you. It has never happened in Zimbabwe. And then that should give you comfort that our process is completely different from the Zimbabwean process. It's a completely different process. Stop sensationalizing, stop being alarmist, allow democracy to play its own role. So, with regard to the land, I think that is what we want to say. There is no food security which is going to be disrupted here. Not at all. Who are we to go into a farm that is producing food for us and say, no, you must cease operations, and then we are taking over? The ordinary people actually told us on the ground that these whites, when you buy land from them, you give them millions. They put stones in the borehole. They damage them. That's why when you come back and say, we've given you the land, you don't do anything with the land, they say, we didn't find anything functioning here. Before you paid them, everything was functioning here. After you paid them and we took over, everything collapsed. They poisoned the land. They take our millions and still poison the land. They take our millions and break the boreholes. So why would we want to engage in a risky process like that? All we are saying is that we want the land to be democratized. The ownership of the land in South Africa must be reflective of the demographics in South Africa. In Tubatsi, there in Skukuni, when you go to that area where there is chrome, where they said people were doing illegal chrome, before the state and big capital attacked them, just go and see what those people did with illegal chrome. In Skukuni, in the village, people were taking chrome because that chrome is just here. They just use a TLB. They don't use any sophisticated method to take out the chrome and sell it to whoever wants to buy it. Go and see what those people have done with that money they were getting from that chrome. You don't need a research. Just go and stand outside there. Those people have built houses, big houses for themselves out of that money of the chrome. They've changed their rural life out of that money of the chrome. Now they stopped them. When the EFF tried to intervene, that thing is owned by Samanco. Then Samanco says, no, this is our land. We've got the permit. So I asked them, what are you doing with this land? Because there's no activity here. People found an empty land. They are using it to feed themselves. They say, no, we're going to start mining here after 30 years. So I'm saying to them, but people are not going to eat after 30 years. People want to eat now. Why is Samanco and the people not coming together? Since Samanco realized these people are using this land to feed themselves, and the department coming together to try and find a workable solution which will continue to feed the people in that part of the land without any go-between. Directly the people must be helped to continue mining the chrome and don't damage the land. They will damage the land if we don't help them. They will damage the environment if we don't help them. That, no, this is how you go about it. But they've demonstrated that that land can benefit them now, and they've benefited out of it. So what do we say about those people who have demonstrated that this land can feed us? What do we say about the people who are saying we've got the tools to work the land to produce food for ourselves? A white man owns a huge farm, doesn't have sufficient cattle to graze on that land. Here are the poor communities. They've got cattle. When they are found in the farm of a white person who doesn't have cattle, who doesn't use that land for anything, they are either killed or they are arrested. You have to go and bail the cattle. The land is not being used for anything. This is a community with cattle. One family has got 4, the other one has got 5. And you know what they do? They use those cattle to pay for the fees of their children. Every January, all those who live in rural areas know that big trucks go into those villages to go and buy because it's a selling season. Why are they selling in January? They must take their kids to school. They are denied that. They are denied that by people who say, if you take this land, there will be war. So what should happen to these communities which don't have the land where their cattle can go and graze? That's what we're seeking to address. These are the people who are not looking for RDPs. Because the counter-argument is that, no, give us title deeds. Give the people title deeds. Give the people to own their RDPs. Our people don't want RDPs. RDPs to do what with RDPs? Cattle can't graze in an RDP. We want productive land for our people.
Thank you, President. Yeah. Let's take one last round for this session. See if, okay, in that case.
There.
Is there. Okay, okay, yes, you should, bro.
Yes, Mr. Malema, has any EFF, do you have any program or strategy to teach the food processing or food manufacturing for ordinary people they might do when they live in land?
Yes, President.
They don't need any teaching. They are producing now in their small yards now. They use tires to produce in their small yards now. Of course, we will professionalize it. Under the EFF government, proper colleges will be established with the necessary skill to professionalize it so that we can give people certificates since you believe in certificates. But otherwise, our people can do a lot of things without certificate. That's what he's asking for. There's a difference between being certificated and educated. We've got educated. My grandmother, 87 years old, still work the land till today. We fight about that. The season is coming now. When you go home to look for her, they will be saying she's there under the tree, giving people guidance. Hey, go that side. Go, hey. Why? She has never been to school. She knows if this land is good or it's not good. She has never been to school. Our people have worked the land before the arrival of Jan van Riebeck and fellow criminals. There was no certificate. They worked the land. Our people produced gold. There were no certificates in Mapungubi. So, but because we now have relations with you through globalization, we appreciate that you may need some paper to prove that indeed we know how to work the land. We will professionalize it. There's absolutely no problem. We will professionalize it, but that doesn't stop. It doesn't mean that we must wait in a wardrobe until we've got certificates before we work the land. We want to work the land now. Firstly, to feed ourselves, and then feed the nations and feed the outside world. The skill is there. There are so many people, by the way, who are willing to come and work the land with us through our own condition. We're not chasing anybody away. We're saying if you come in to work with us, you're going to do so through our terms. I heard the ordinary people in the hearings saying, these white people who are owning this land today, when we take it, let's not expel them. Let's give them offers to be managers who will employ them and pay them. Since they claim to have skill, but they will have to produce a paper. Because if we were to conduct a research of how many these farmers are qualified, and whether you have ever asked them that question, whether they've got a paper, the current ones. Because everything black, it must be proved. These whites don't have paper. I used to buy cattle there when I was in Polokwane. I used to have a farm there. the father was not always there. The young man was there. Firstly, he couldn't speak in English. Because why? He was born there. He stayed there. He has never been to school. And it's the case with many of them. They only come to town after getting drunk and beat up people and go back to the farms. So before we're even told about certificate, let them first produce certificates themselves. They do not have. In Skukuni, they were saying, president of Contralesa, some person was saying the Skukuni there that white people do not graduate, they are not even at school. We're the only ones who graduate and all that. And I was telling the person who was sitting next to me that, no, he's talking like this because in their colleges here, Utompisiliga and them, it's only black people in those colleges there. There are no white people. Yet there are white people in the farms there. But the people in the schools, it's only black Africans. So these black Africans, since they don't see fellow students in their colleges, they thought, these whites don't go to school to do this thing of agriculture, we're the only ones. And they say, no, because we're the only ones who graduate there. We must be the ones who have the land because these whites don't graduate there. We don't even know where they graduate. So those colleges, agricultural colleges in the villages there, do not have white students. It's only black students who must prove through a paper that they can do this thing. So we're part of the globe. In the EFF, we embrace education. We love education. We encourage our people to go to school. We will take them to school to produce certificates to prove that they can work the land. We have no problem with that. But despite that certificate, they will still work the land. Because it is their land, they don't have to prove to anyone that they've got a certificate to work it. They are working it now. They may not produce at a bigger scale because there are no opportunities. 100 people producing food for millions of people. As a result, they manipulate food prices. Food is very expensive in South Africa. Food is very expensive because the food production is in the hands of the few and they manipulate it. Let's expand it. We are not going, you can't give food producing farm to Malema who knows nothing about food production. These Africans, these blacks who are going to be assigned the responsibility of broadening the food production, they themselves will have to prove to our own state, the owner of the land, that they will use this land effectively. And if they fail, because we are the owners of the land, we'll go and take it and give to other people who will use it. That's why we want the state to have power over the land. So that if you don't use it for intended purpose, and as a result you starve our economy, we must have the right to take it and give it to somebody else without compensation, because it's our land. So now we can't do it. Even farmers who are not using productive farms to produce, we can't take their farms because we are going to be told you will be taken to court. And it has to start at magistrate level. Magistrate must say, I'm not competent enough to deal with this. It must go to regional level. Regional magistrate court says, no, it's not my level. It must go to high court. Then the high court must rule against us. Then we must do an appeal. The same high court put 3 judges to listen to it, and then they don't listen to it properly. Then we are aggrieved. We go to the Supreme Court of Appeal. And then we fail at the Supreme Court of Appeal. We must go to the Constitutional Court. By the time you finish, it's 5 years before you even expropriate 10 hectares. That's what they want to do. That's why they say the current constitution allows it. Why? They want to lock you up in that process of appeals so that you can't do anything. So if the current constitution allows it, and we are saying it doesn't allow it, since we agree, let's make it clear, more clearer, so that there is no confusion around it. And no one can be dragging us to courts and the courts and the courts when we take the land without compensation.